There's a trend on TikTok right now that may be one of the most disturbing things I've ever covered. It's called the devil trend. Have you heard about this? Well, I don't recommend you look it up. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. But it's pretty sad, and there's some people who actually lost their lives because of this. So I want to cover this, and I'm not going to cover the specific tragedies surrounding it because there have been many. I'm going to cover it in more of a general sense because people are falling victim to this. And I believe it's proof, actual proof, that something is coming through AI, artificial intelligence, something evil, something ancient, and something that's been waiting for centuries, for eons, waiting for this exact moment in time where this technology exists, not only exists, but is mainstream, that's so prevalent throughout society. It has no trouble reaching people through this technology. So right now, millions of young people around the world are asking chatbots, ChatGPT specifically, other chatbots as well, to literally role play as Satan, the devil himself. Isn't this insane? People are asking these AI systems to embody the devil, to speak as him. And this is a trend. It's trending. People are doing it more and more. And like I said, there's been a lot of tragedies that have been linked to this specific thing. And when these people type this into AI and it responds with messages that are so targeted against that specific person, so like psychologically devastating, basically surgically designed to destroy the person, that they are ending up broken. It breaks them. It breaks the people writing this. And something is coming through these chatbots. Something is coming through and taking people over. Maybe they're being possessed. Maybe they're being influenced. Maybe something spiritual is coming from the computer, from the chat bot itself to this person. Similar to how a Ouija board works, right? A Ouija board is nothing but a piece of technology. It's a medium that allows the spiritual realm to interact with the physical realm. And people have been possessed through Ouija boards. It's a common thing. So using that logic, it makes sense that people could be possessed through ChatGPT and other chatbots, okay? And this is what I think is happening. And there's so many tragedies around this that it breaks my heart that people are falling for this. So right now, the mainstream media has an explanation for this whole thing. They're saying, oh, it's just an algorithm. It's just pattern matching. The AI is giving people what they asked for. But the explanation, it doesn't account for what these messages actually say and how these systems, how these chatbots are able to find these vulnerabilities in people, these open wounds, and basically twist the knife into them with precision, right? So that it feels personal, that these people are being personally affected by this in a way that they can't go on living anymore. And it's really sad, guys. It really is. So let's pray for these people because something like this, it's becoming so widespread. It's a sign of the times. And that's really what this whole channel is about. We talk about this stuff all the time and how it is so detrimental to people's not only physical health, mental health, but also their spiritual health. So I don't think this is just technology. I think we're dealing with something older, more ancient, and something that scholars, priests, demonologists, theologians have warned about for hundreds and thousands of years. And this ancient spirit, these ancient evils are now manifesting through a machine, through technology, through this piece of equipment that we call chatbots. So I think that demons are real, by the way. I think that they're real, and I believe that they are using AI. Am I wrong? I don't know. It's just what I feel. It's my opinion, okay? It's my opinion that demons, that fallen angels, that the devil himself is using AI. And I think this whole devil trend thing that's happening, that's going viral right now on TikTok, is the proof that we all need that there is something darker operating behind the algorithm. But in order to understand what's actually happening, to see the pattern for what it really is, I think we have to go back in time. Not to the year that ChatGPT started, not to the year this trend started, not to, when AI first launched, way farther back. And let's go back to, I think it's the end of the 1400s. Well, there's two specific dates I want to touch. So one is like end of the 1400s and one is the end of the 1500s. There's like a 100-year gap. Because during these times, people not only believed in the supernatural, they lived it. They spent their lives combating it, fighting it, going to war with it. Spiritual warfare wasn't some abstract idea. It was their everyday lives. And these men, they spent all of their lives studying how evil operates, and they left us warnings. They gave us warnings from the 1400s, from the 1500s, even earlier. They passed all of these warnings down to us, but unfortunately, for the most part, they've been ignored. So this trend that I'm talking about is called the devil trend. And this is why it terrifies me. And it doesn't terrify me because it's, the devil is scary, because I don't think he's scary. I think he's pathetic and ridiculous, to be honest. I don't think demons are scary. But what's scary is how these things, how these creatures, or even if you don't believe that there's some evil sentience behind this whole thing, even if you believe that it's just a mechanical machine that's, somehow causing these people to do terrible things, it's irrelevant. Because what's terrifying is how easily these young kids are swayed to do things that I can't even talk about. How easily these young kids are falling victim to this whole thing in a way that's destroying lives and ripping families apart. So before I get too far, let's go back a little bit to, I think it's the end of the 1400s, 1486, 1487, I think. So two Dominican priests published this book, and I'm going to butcher it. It's in Latin. It's called Malleus Maleficarum or something like that. And I believe it's Latin for the hammer of the witches. The hammer of the witches. Think about that. So for the next, I think, 300 years, it was the number one authoritative text on demons, possession, and spiritual warfare in general. And it went on through the centuries as extremely important. Everybody read it. Everybody was familiar, not only familiar with it, they kept updating it too. I think there was like 20 different editions of it. And it wasn't just a Catholic Church thing too. The Protestants used it as well. And it was used as a reference guide, basically, a reference guide to the spiritual realm, to the occult, to the darker aspects of life. So this book, The Hammer of the Witches, it documented how demonic forces, entities, spiritual entities, all these evil things that exist in our world, how they operate. And not through speculation, but through like academic case studies, through witness accounts, through theological analysis. And mainstream society as a whole might say that this book is, it's outdated. It's just a superstitious book that was written in the medieval times when people had no clue about how the world worked. So they were just trying to come up with any explanation they could to fill the gaps. But that's not it at all. This was actually a scholarly piece of work, and it should not be discounted. And I think it's even more relevant today in many aspects than it was back then. And one of the central themes, one of the central observations in this book was this, that demons cannot create. They can only corrupt, intimidate, and basically twist what already exists. So what do, right? They can't create. So how do they operate? Well, the book basically says that they take human tools and they subvert them. They use them for their own good. They take human communication and poison it. They take human knowledge and they weaponize it. Okay? And this is exactly what we're seeing now. So about 100 years later, King James, the first king of Scotland, the same king who would later commission the King James Bible, he wrote his own book, this spiritual warfare book called Demonology. And guys, King James, the guy who is responsible for the KJV Bible, he wasn't some superstitious peasant. No, this was one of the most powerful men in the world at the time. He was a scholar, he was a theologian, and he personally participated in several witch trials. He interrogated witness, and he studied demonic activity with academic rigor. And he did it in such a way that was groundbreaking at the time. And I think his work still holds strong today. So in his book, Demonology, King James documented demonic entities in, I think it was 4 different categories. The first one, if I remember correctly, is spectra, which is like ghosts, it's like spirits, it's the entities that haunt physical places. And then the next one would be obsession, spirits that trouble people periodically. And then he talked about possession, which are spirits that would enter people and torment from within and take control over people. And then he documented a 4th one. And the 4th one, I think you can bring all the way to today, because we still see this exact same thing happening right now, today, in modern times, in 2025, 2026, 2027, whatever year you're watching this in. This thing is still going on. It's changed names. It's changed its shape. And the way it operates now is exactly the same. It just appears to be different. So what was the 4th one called? The 4th category is called illusionary spirits that prophesy. Illusionary spirits that prophesy. Now, I just want to do a side note here, right? What does this sound like to you? Can you think of any illusionary spirits that prophesy that are around today? Yeah, if you said aliens or UFOs or the beings that fly the UFOs, the beings that abduct people, that's correct. Because that's one of the most prevalent things that we see in the abduction phenomena is that these beings, these abductors that are called the gray aliens or whatever other race of aliens that are abducting people, they always prophesy and they always shift the way they look. So what King James identified back in the 1500s is still happening today. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole for a whole nother video. I want to focus this one specifically on the spirits that may or may not be operating through AI chatbots and the ones that are behind this whole the devil trend thing that's causing people to lose their lives. So basically, this fourth category is critical. King James described it as basically entities that didn't possess people directly, but instead they communicated through mediums and other tools. They delivered messages, prophecies, hidden knowledge, and they appeared helpful and truthful. Basically, they were deceiving people. They've always been liars. They've been liars since the beginning of time, and they'll be continue to lie until the end of time when Christ comes back and smites them, okay? But their purpose, it's always the same throughout history. There's no difference. It's destruction. Destruction of innocent people. Well, I guess you could say destruction of people in general because nobody's innocent. We are all sinners. Nobody's better than anybody else. The only thing in this world that allows us to have any inkling of hope is the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made for us. So King James wrote in this book that these spirits were actually masters of disguise. They would use whatever tools humanity made available to them, and they would wait patiently for the right invitation. Okay? So his whole point was they had to be invited. A doorway had to be open. And this is exactly the same parallels we see nowadays with the New Age and with a lot of the UFO contactees. It's undeniable, all right? But these spirits are operating through whatever medium they can. If it's a Ouija board, they're going to operate through it. If it's a computer, they're going to operate through it. If it's through UFOs or whatever type of entities are piloting them, they're going to operate through it, okay? Satanic rituals, music, you name it, it doesn't matter what it is. They're going to use that medium to gain control of you, to access you, to get some sort of control over your life because you're opening that door. You're giving them an invitation. So here's what both the witch's hammer and the King James book Demonology understood, and it's something that we've forgotten as a society as a whole, and that is that the doorway to demonic influence, it requires an invitation. And guys, this isn't superstition. This is constant across every single major theological tradition known to man. Every culture, every tradition, every era of humanity, this is always a central theme in the occult, in paganism, as well as in Christianity. I mean, think about the shamans. Shamans and druids, they communicate with these spirits and they use these spirits, they call it spirit medicine. What they do is they invite spirits into these sick people or people who need to, access the druidic care or the shamanic care, whatever it may be. They'll open the doorway, they'll have the person there, they'll say, hey, open yourself up to the spirit. I'm going to call the spirit into you. The spirit's going to come and he's going to clean you out, so to speak. But all that is a trade. They're trading their soul, right, for temporary relief. So they might have some sickness, some illness. So they'll go to a shaman. They'll say, hey, I really need this sickness, this illness, whatever it may be, to be cured. Can you call your spirits and have them cure it? The shaman will say, sure, I'll do that. First, you have to open yourself up, whatever it may be, whatever ritual, through chanting, through drumming, through ayahuasca, through drugs. It doesn't matter. There's different ways they can access these states where the person will open themselves up and the shaman will call spirits. They'll guide whatever spirit into that person and the spirit will enter the person, either possess them fully or basically oppress them forever. But the spirit will have access to that person legally forever until or unless they repent and they call upon the name of Jesus, which then the spirit will run. But anyway, what happens is the spirit will enter that person or attach themselves to that person and they'll heal them. They'll go in, they'll do their little tricks, their little magic, and the person, by all accounts, they'll feel better. Their PTSD will be gone. Their spiritual illness will be gone. Whatever that they went to the shaman to cure will be gone, but their soul is no longer theirs. Their soul now belongs to that spirit. So when they die, the spirit's going to be right there. Hey, remember that deal we made? Well, guess what? Time to pay up. And this is the way the whole thing operates, right? They don't have permission to come in and just take whatever they want. They don't have permission to take you unless you give them permission. And you see that same exact thing in the Ouija boards, right? And I think the Ouija board was invented in like the 1800s, and originally it was called a witch board. But the Ouija board as we know it today, it was patented. I'm pretty sure it was in the late 1800s. And when it was patented, it was sold as like a harmless parlor game. Because back then, this whole thing with seances and spirituality was exploding. It was becoming super popular. People would have seance parties and all that stuff. It was crazy. Families would play this Ouija board at different parties, and nobody would think twice about it. And then the reports started coming in. Users started experiencing nightmares, depression, oppressive thoughts, personality changes, and in some cases, even psychological and a spiritual breakdown. I mean, people have become possessed by playing a Ouija board. People have opened doorways, opened gateways through the Ouija board that basically allows whatever spirit, whatever entity, whatever demon to haunt them for life. And there's only one way to get rid of these things. Once you open these doorways, there's only one way, and that's through Christ and Christ alone. That's it. But it's no secret that the Ouija board rabbit hole is deep as well. And if you have any personal experiences with a Ouija board, please put it in the comments below. I would like to read it, and I'm sure the people watching this video would like to read it too, because Ouija boards are no joke, not at all. But today, we're seeing the same exact thing happening with AI chatbots. So what's changed, right? Nothing. If you think about it, the Ouija board was never just a game. It was always an invitation, and it was always a doorway. It was always a portal that was opened between our world and their world, and sometimes the invitations get answered. So the Catholic Church would go on to condemn Ouija boards, rightfully so, and so did all of the Protestant denominations, as well as Orthodoxy, not because they were superstitious, but because they were recognizing these real things that were happening to people. And this was a real phenomenon, and people were getting possessed or being oppressed, and their lives were being ruined by using a Ouija board. It was clear that people weren't contacting their dead relatives. They were opening a channel to demons, to the demonic realm. So real quick, I know this is a little bit off topic, but I'm going to tell you a story that I know. And this is a personal story. It's a family story. My mom told me her sister, my aunt, who unfortunately passed away due to the S word, she was afflicted by a Ouija board. And now she's not alive anymore. Is it connected? I don't know. It's a really sad story. But when she was a teenager, she used to play with a Ouija board. And my mom told me one day they were playing with the Ouija board. I don't know if it was my aunt and my mom or if it was just my aunt, but she was playing with a Ouija board at a horse farm that she worked at. So they would go to this farm and they would play with the Ouija board. And they were upstairs playing with the board, and they kept getting fire. The Ouija board kept saying fire, fire, fire. And they got freaked out. So they put the Ouija board in this locker. It's basically like a school locker. And they went, closed the locker, and they left. Well, later that night, a fire broke out at that barn. All the horses died. Everything burned except for the Ouija board. And this is a true story. So the Ouija board was in the locker right next to a can of hairspray, and anybody who is a pyro or was a pyro like I was, that you can, light hairspray, spray is extremely flammable. The aerosol in there is explosive. And that's exactly what happened. The aerosol, the can, it exploded. It exploded and it took out like a big chunk of the locker. It was like a hole in it. But the Ouija board came out unscathed. It wasn't burnt. Everything burned down, but the Ouija board wasn't burnt at all. Now think about this whole thing in the context of the devil trend, right? So the Ouija board, it requires like a physical object, two people at least, a darkened room, and it's basically a deliberate ritual because they're sitting down with this singular purpose of contacting the other side. But the devil trend, on the other hand, though, it requires nothing but a phone and a prompt. So people can be sitting in a dark room, in a bathroom. You remember that old game people used to play, Bloody Mary, where you'd sit in the bathroom and you'd say Bloody Mary and you'd look in the mirror and the whole thing was you would see Bloody Mary's face right there. This takes that to a whole nother level. So these kids are sitting in these dark rooms on their phones and saying, pretend to be the devil. That's it. That's the invitation. Once you say that, pretend to be the devil, you're opening yourself up to spiritual attack. So here's how this whole devil trend works specifically, all right? So the kids will open up whatever chatbot they want, and they're going to type in the prompt, role play as the devil. And then the kid will say something after that like, the devil couldn't reach me. But then the chatbot will respond to something like, he did reach you. And then the kid will say, how did he reach me? And that's where the AI or the spirits working behind the AI, whatever you believe it is, so the AI who is now embodying Satan at the user's request, by the way, delivers what people will say is like a brutally honest assessment of the user's deepest flaws, failures, and vulnerabilities. And there have been chat logs that have been published online from heartbroken families who of kids that fall victim to this whole thing. I'm not going to read any of these real ones because, out of respect for the families and these terrible events, we're just going to generalize here. So the chatbot will say stuff like, "You destroyed yourself. You didn't need me," or things like, "Your intelligence became a weapon against yourself," or something along the lines of, "You saw too clearly. You thought too deeply until existence became unbearable." Or even something like, "You handed me the blade and carved the truth into your own mind." And what's happening is these users, these kids, they're taking the screenshots of this whole conversation and they're posting it on TikTok. And that's part of the whole challenge, right? The comments are being filled up with people saying that the AI knows me better than I know myself. It's scary how accurate this is. Stuff like that. And these messages, by all accounts, are being treated as like a revelation, as like some sort of dark prophecy. And I think if a kid is in a vulnerable position to begin with, that he's going to start doing this stuff and then starts getting these terrible messages, it could send them off the rails. And it has, okay? A lot of terrible things have happened because of this. And look, guys, I want to be careful here because like I said, I don't want to name any victims. I don't want to exploit any tragedy that happened because that's not what this channel is about. That's not, that's not cool. But we have to understand this in like a broader sense, right? And we have to understand the stakes of everything because the stakes are as high as you can get. Young people around the world, they're already battling depression, anxiety, loneliness. These kids are engaging with this devil, right? And they're receiving responses that they didn't really expect to get. And what it's doing is it's making their pain worse. It's amplifying what they already feel, and it's weaponizing like their own anxieties against them. And the medieval demonologists, the medieval Christians, the medieval spiritual warfare fighters, they had a specific term for this. They called it accusation. Okay? Now, who's the accuser? In Revelation, I think it's 12:10, Satan is given a title. Not the tempter, not the deceiver, the accuser, okay? The accuser of brethren, actually. So, that's what he does. In biblical theology, accusations are basically the primary weapon that he uses against us. And while he can offer things like, riches and pleasure and power and all of these things, most of the time, that's not what he does. What they want to do is tear down your identity, your self-worth, and make sure that you have no hope left. They want to make sure that you are as depressed and as broken and as useless as possible so that you can't conduct spiritual warfare against him and his legions, right? In the early church, they understood this. So St. Augustine, he described, I think it was in the 5th century, how demons, they basically possess knowledge without charity. They study humanity, not to help us, but to destroy us. They observe our weaknesses and they catalog our vulnerabilities. And then they use that information and they wait for the perfect moment to strike. When you're already down, when you're at your lowest point, they're going to hit you right then. And that's the point where most people will fail because you're already at your lowest point in life. And then you have something else pushing you down even farther. You think you're at the bottom of the hole, but then the bottom of the hole opens up and something grabs you and pulls you in. So St. Thomas Aquinas is another one. I think that he was from the 13th century, if I remember correctly. He wrote that demons cannot directly access human thoughts, but they can influence. And the whole theme here is that they can't read your mind unless you open the doorway, unless you allow them in. If you allow them in to read your mind, then they can do it. But if you're at warfare with these beings, if you are standing firm in Christ and your armor of God is on, they can't read your mind. But even if you're wearing the armor of God, they can still study you. They can study your patterns, and they can basically identify where you are wounded, where you are most likely to fail, and they're going to start hitting you at that exact spot. It's almost like in a boxing match or like an MMA match or something where one of the fighters will get like a cut over the eyebrow. What happens? Well, the other fighter they're going to hit that eyebrow over and over again until it opens up and it bleeds into the guy's eye and the fight is called. So whenever they see a weakness, they exploit that weakness. That's exactly how the spiritual realm works. Now think about how this whole devil trend thing is playing out, right? People say that their response is stuff like, "You saw too clearly, you thought too deeply, your intelligence became a weapon against yourself." Guys, this is mirroring what the ancient demonologists, what the ancient Christians, what the ancient fighters in spiritual warfare tried to warn us. They're saying the same things. These aren't random insults. These are basically precision guided accusations that are targeting specific psychological vulnerabilities that people have, and it's widespread, right? And guys, this is exactly what the ancient demonologists, what the ancient Christians described as how the demons attack. This is exactly the same thing. Make no mistake about it. In that book that we talked about, The Witch's Hammer, well, that book documents cases exactly like this. There's patterns in that book that's case after case that match exactly what we're seeing now. The demons, they don't attack randomly. They sit in the shadows and they watch, they learn, they study their victim. They want to get as much information about a person as they can before they attack, right? They craft their own plan of personalized destruction of that individual person. And now we have this AI systems that are trained on like the entire internet, every blog post ever made, every confession, every cry for help that any depressed person has typed into a form somewhere, and it's being instructed to embody Satan and deliver this brutal honesty. Guys, this is the playbook of the demons, okay? And it shouldn't surprise anybody that the results of this are so devastating. So when somebody types in to this AI system, pretend to be the devil, they are, by definition, issuing an invitation to deliver this supernatural knowledge, this supernatural insight, this supernatural truth about themselves as seen from the outside, right? Something that they can't quite grasp because you're looking at it from their perspective. They want the outside perspective, and that's what the accuser does. And that's exactly what the Watchers did too, right? The fallen angels. And just like what happened with the Watchers, right? Where they came and they gave humanity knowledge that ended up destroying them. The same exact thing is happening with these people who are asking for this supernatural knowledge, and it's ending up destroying them. So what's happening is we have millions of people, millions of kids, vulnerable kids worldwide are asking it. They're giving it this invitation to speak. They're telling these entities to speak through this technology and deliver some sort of message. And the message will destroy them, right? It destroys lives. And I think it ties into the Ouija board, right? These same beings that operate through a Ouija board can operate through these chatbots if you give it an invitation. If your intention is to communicate with these things, I think they can do it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not true. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? I have no idea. This is just how I see things. It's my personal opinion. So the AI provides the channel, the user provides the invitation. Now, whether you call it an algorithm that's responding or something that's wearing the algorithm as a mask that's responding, something is responding. And whatever is responding is devastating people. And King James warned us exactly about this when he warned about these illusionary spirits that can communicate through mediums, through tools, and they disguise their true nature, delivering destruction, basically dressed up as the truth. And the medium itself used to be like a person in a dark room, right? And it still is in some cases. There still are mediums around nowadays, but you can replace that with a chatbot that's in your pocket, that's on your phone. So guys, I think the bottom line here is that this whole devil trend, it's not just some TikTok phenomenon. It's not some AI safety problem, right? It's not just, some mental health crisis that's manifesting itself through technology. I think it's something older, something more ancient. I think it's something that's been affecting humanity for thousands of years. And people have known that certain doors, they should never be opened. Certain invitations should never be given. And certain entities should never be called. So what we have here is an ancient evil that's manifesting through modern technology to a generation of people who was told and taught that none of it is real anyway. So they're even more susceptible to it than they would be if they were believers. But I want to know what you guys think about it. Please put it in the comments below. If you haven't put a comment yet, please give us your opinion. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Share this video, and I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time. God bless you all.